So I would describe my recovery as a spiritual recovery that's ever unfolding. It was not just one static event, but I've always defined success as finally being comfortable with yourself, and I think that's what this journey has been. Initially, as I had mentioned before, my first taste of recovery was in an abstinence-based environment, therapeutic communities. Actually, I would say I guess we can include detoxes as before then. Um, but in terms of a sustained journey within, I would most definitely describe my experience and my years with Phoenix House, which was a therapeutic community. I remember going into induction, which was a facility, I think, on 185th Street in the Bronx back then. And this is late 70s, early 80s. And just finding, this apartment building that had been converted into a residential treatment facility uh, from, I think, about 3 or 4 floors, that the entire facility was administered and run um, by people that were former addicts, and that blew my mind. I fell in love. It just proved to me the potential and the unparalleled power of one person helping another. I try not to use the word addict. I don't think people should be defined by what they do, but who they are. So I usually use the term people who use drugs, not drugs user, not drug addict, a dope fiend. Language has a lot to do with expanding your vision. So in this, my recovery started there. I remember early on in this residential community, there were drinking privileges that were afforded to people who had been there maybe about a year or so. And the purpose then of treatment was to get folks to stop using drugs, but alcohol was not considered a drug that led to the type of behavior that we were involved in. That if you would put down the dry goods, that one could drink, and that had mixed results. Um, the but it is so funny because when I came in, they had drinking privileges, and then while I was there, they suspended drinking privileges. But I had a counselor who was very active in Alcoholics Anonymous and would take us to AA meetings on Sundays. And I remember going to AA meetings and just was enthralled with the love and the fellowship in those meetings. One particular meeting in Harlem on Sundays, and I fell in love with the fellowship. Now, the residential community at that time was not embracing 12-step programs. So we had to sort of do this like on the low to go to the meetings. But the beautiful thing is that I had developed a support system in the meeting. So when I finally finished my treatment at Phoenix House, I went into a regimen of support, of love, of, of internal work on myself to improve myself, and people that celebrated me and my recovery. It was wonderful. In fact, remains so to this day. But again, it was abstinence based, and I did not label it that at that time. All I knew that I was welcome in this community after years of being isolated, years of being shut out of the mainstream of society as well as personal growth that was stunted. So This was this was manna from heaven for me, and I continued after leaving treatment and then working the field and having AA in one hand and my career in the next. And then I started working at Exponents. Actually, we founded it with me and my business partner, good friend Howard Josepher, who also was from Phoenix House years ago. And we started providing harm reduction services. And harm reduction services, we always say, is meeting people where they are, but not leaving them there. Giving it's harm reduction is radical welcome, and with compassion and with non-judgment, which was a different paradigm for me, but I saw how it worked. And so I can say now that my recovery, I'm a harm reductionist um, who chooses not to use drugs and alcohol, but I still love people who will use drugs and alcohol. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. So thank you.